Yeah. All right. Good morning and welcome to the February 8th, 2023 Curriculum Instruction Committee meeting. So first of all, do we have any public comment? Do not. I think everybody I see is in the system. Okay. Oh, thank you. Fallon, Mr. J, any comments before we get started?
No, I'm good, thank you.
All right, Mr. J says none at this time. Yeah, we usually tend to save our comments during the presentations and questions, but it is on the agenda, so we do that. And it looks like first up is the Accelerated Learning Process, ALP. And Dr. Puppet, take it away.
So good morning, everyone. Welcome to the committee meeting. Accelerated learning process is a very important thing for our community to be aware of, as well as you all as board members, because this is really about looking very closely at where students are achieving in a school-based process, so that we can respond to any students who need additional support. That's the simplest view of it, but it is very much an evidence-based and research-informed practice that Jen Bingman, who's our Director of System Accountability and School Improvement, and Kelly Denty, who is our Supervisor of Local Assessment and Intervention, are going to lead the presentation, but they've also brought some friends from the schools, because that's where the magic happens. And so I'm going to turn it over to Jen, and thank you for pulling the team together to share this important work.
So thanks for having us. We're excited to share, of course, our passion for ALP, and we know we have the school teams that are here that will be able to share their passion as well. So, we also have Tuscarora High School folks that are coming, and so I'm sure they're probably just running a little bit late, so we may have two people. But right now, what we have, and we do have transition slides which introduces them, but I do want to also share who they are now. So we have Erin Coffey from Butterfly Ridge. She's the math specialist, and Jason Anderson, the principal, is not feeling well, so he was unable to make it today, or he would have been here as well. And then at the middle school, we have Drew Killer, who is our principal at Urbana, and then we have Emily Zeller, who is our team leader, and then Lauren Lungenberger, who is the lit specialist. And from Tuscarora, we have Lisa Smith, who's the principal, and Tiffany Flowers Jackson, who is a math teacher, algebra teacher, who will be joining. So hopefully they'll be able to make it here by the time. But we wanted to really start off by just doing a quick overview as to what is ALP. And thank you, Dr. Puppet, for doing a nice intro as to what is ALP. And it really is a research informed. And if you look at any of the research on like what happens in schools when they really increase and student achievement rises, part of that is collaborative planning. And that's really what ALP is about. It's collaborative planning. And sometimes people think that it's professional learning, and so it's coming to a professional learning, or we have some misconceptions that we are trying to make sure that we make sure people understand. It's really about collaboratively planning and teachers coming together to really look at their instructional practices and using evidence data in order to drive that, student evidence of learning to drive that. But part of the research that we pulled out is really the compelling why, which is really about strong ALP teams develop strong collective efficacy. And in John Hattie's work, if you look at his meta-analysis that he's done, collective teacher efficacy is the top. It is the highest rating that you can possibly get on research studies. And that's really what ALP does, is it brings teams together to build the collective teacher efficacy. Because what we know is when teams have that shared belief that they can have a positive impact on student achievement, then they believe in their collective ability, and then it improves student outcomes. And that's really what ALP is trying to achieve. The pandemic, we started ALP in 2017. We rolled it out. We worked with teams. We were making some strides with it, and then the pandemic happened and stress happened, and teachers were navigating the pandemic and all the struggles, and ALP became something that people felt was one more thing. And so we did pause ALP. There were some teams that kept going, because teams that understand the power of this, they actually understand that ALP lessens their workload, and it takes away what you have to do independently and gives you that collective power. And so really what we're trying to do is to break down some of those misconceptions. Hi, thank you both for joining us. That's okay. We're glad you're here. We're trying to break down some of those misconceptions so that teachers know that it really is about coming together, looking at student work, designing instruction to match what students need, and then solving those instructional concerns that they have together. And so they're not alone. It's not just the teacher with the group of students, it's them collectively solving that. So ALP is really, like I said, collaborating, teachers coming together to collaborate, and it really should be on a weekly basis. And the more frequently, the better. And what we've noticed is that teams with high collective teacher efficacy, they find a way to meet almost daily because they'll find a way to touch base in the hallway and be like, oh my gosh, I gave that assessment. Here's what my kids did. Here's what I'm thinking about. And so it becomes part of the culture that they just have to kind of collaborate. They check in with one another and they celebrate together. They celebrate the successes. And they really do adjust their instruction based on the evidence of learning and really working to build the student agency so that students really do reach their learning goals. Because we want to involve them in the learning, right? It's not what we're doing to them. We want to engage them in it. And so ALP is really focused on building that student agency and involving the students in the process.
So we have this graphic to try to simply communicate what components should be focused on during ALP. And so in order to design effective instruction and monitor student learning, we ask that teams engage in regular discussion about the content knowledge. How will we know when students demonstrate that knowledge or whatever they're supposed to be able to do, and so that success criteria is part of the evidence of learning. The instructional design, so what tasks are we actually having students engage in, and then the student agency piece. The part on the left shows that this really is an ongoing process, and as Jen mentioned, the more collective efficacy a team has, the more frequently they converse with each other formally and informally. So in terms of content knowledge, the big guiding question is, what do students need to know or be able to do? And this allows for sort of that embedded learning where teachers who are very proficient with the standards can share their knowledge and how they plan instruction with the standards in mind. This allows teachers to clear up any misconceptions of the content that they have so they can clearly present that content to students. And it really has them sort of evaluate the resources that they're going to use to convey the content. The evidence of learning guiding question is really, what is the success criteria? How are we going to know when students have demonstrated the learning? And this requires them to look at common formative assessments, formal and informal. They look at the local assessment framework and they figure out what data is going to prove that students have mastered what they need to master. Instructional design is really looking at how are we going to respond based on the evidence to the students that have not yet demonstrated learning, and how are we going to extend that learning for the students that have already mastered it. So it's really looking at a differentiated process of designing instruction that's meaningful for each and every student. And then student agency really requires us to just bring those students in as partners in their learning. How can they own the process? When we're talking about instruction of standards and content, we like to say that a student can hit any target that's clear and doesn't move. So we try to get our teachers to understand that maintaining those high expectations, but also that transparency with students, is the kindest and most equitable way to approach learning. So how can the students own that process? And we want you to hear from our schools, so we're gonna get right into it. Erin is gonna share what her experience has been at Butterfly Ridge.
So as they mentioned, ALP consists of that content knowledge piece, which is essential, especially in elementary school when you're teaching several contents. Instructional design, evidence of learning, and student agency. And that needs to happen all the time in order to be an effective teacher, which is why we need ALP. But our teachers want it. And I know, like, you can listen to me say that as a specialist, but I wanted to share with you that after every single ALP, they take a 3-question survey, and the first question that they are asked is up here. On a scale of 1 to 5, rate how the work completed today during ALP will accelerate learning in your classroom. The average so far for this year is 4.8, and that's 1 to 5. So if that doesn't tell you anything, then like that's huge. And the same trends were happening last year as well, and through the pandemic. I feel like we made great strides through the pandemic with ALP. So ALP does occur weekly, but it kind of differs depending on the grade level. In 3 through 5, we are departmentalized this year, so I am able to meet with the math team every single week. Every Monday morning we are together. But then in primary, because they are not departmentalized, they alternate content areas, reading, writing, and math. And that's been a concern for them. The teachers are asking for more. Now that it's quarter 3, we have to go down to only 3 ALPs a month. So they're missing out on that weekly discussion of what they're teaching. During ALP, when we meet weekly, it is, so I'm gonna kind of go back to meeting once a week. So what do we do once a week? That's where our classroom teachers, our EL teachers, special ed teachers, and intervention teachers are all together. And one of the things that we do during that time is design instruction for our underserved populations. If you look at our school, our EL and our special ed has historically performed significantly lower than our general population. So my focus this year has been to empower the EL and special ed teachers to come prepared with specific scaffolds for grade level tasks, because it's not about watering down the grade level content, it's about building those scaffolds so that those students can access grade level. And without doing that weekly, like there's no way to keep up. Our curriculum changes so fast with math. So another important aspect of ALP is this poster up here. It's where we turn numbers into names, names into faces, and faces into stories. This year we have data walls on science fair boards. The blue side is what we call the ocean, and that's the on grade level and above grade level. On the opposite side, it's yellow, it's the sand, and we're using a starfish metaphor this year. We want our starfish to get to the ocean. So during ALP, we talk about our progress monitoring tools, some of the in-house common formative assessments, as well as those local assessments, the county level assessments, and we monitor who is getting to the ocean and who's not. Or are there kids who started in the ocean and have fallen back? And what do we need to do to get them back to what we call the ocean? It's a very powerful visual. Every kid who is special ed or a specific ethnicity is labeled on that card, as well as EL. And we all are at the table, like, what do they need to get here? What is it that's keeping them from getting here? And I love those conversations. And one of the reasons, so as Jen mentioned, in 2017, ALP started. I was a math specialist at Spring Ridge at that time, but in 2018, Butterfly Ridge opened, and it was a mix of 3 different schools, very high needs. And when they came, we were all excited. We took the Q1 math assessment, 1% proficient. I was defeated. That was 1 student out of 100, because we had about 100 in each grade. I didn't know how we were going to get anywhere. I was like, what is going on? I barely know the teachers that are teaching these kids. I'm getting to know these kids. The social emotional needs were huge. And I live in data, but this year, our 5th grade, and specifically those who have been with us the majority of their career, they have now outperformed the county on not just the Q1, but also the Q2 benchmark. And I attribute that to our time at ALP. Thank you.
Chills.
But one of the things that there's so many reasons, but one of the things during ALP is we focus on acceleration, not remediation. When you have kids who are significantly below grade level, it's easy to get stuck in teaching them the skills from 2 grade levels below, 3 grade levels below, but we can't do that. They're never going to get caught up if we keep doing that. So we've used Achieve the Core, has these coherence maps, and we have identified our most salient skills and what is it that we need, kind of like an arrow. We're going to pull them back a little bit just so we can shoot them forward. And that's what we've done. And like iReady is showing that it's happening. It is happening, and it's because of ALP and that weekly time together. It's definitely, prepping for ALP is a lot of work, but it's also one of the most rewarding parts of my job. I love celebrating with the teachers. I love having that time to think differently about what we're doing, because we have to. We've got to do it. So I feel very strongly about.
You just recently added something else, right? Your student voice.
Yes, so I call them user stories. So we had kiddos come to ALP, and we are focusing on some of the subclaims from MCAP, the reasoning and modeling subclaims, which require a lot of thinking and reasoning about math and communicating, which for our EL students can be a challenge. So I brought in kiddos, and they sat at the table, and we didn't ask them to solve. We just showed them a modeling or reasoning task, which can be very wordy, and just said, what are you thinking? What is coming to mind? What do you need to do to help break down this problem? Because MCAP, about half of MCAP is heavily reliant on the kid being able to read. So we call these our user stories, and they kind of drive our instructional design for the next week. So I'm very excited about doing more.
And when Ms. Coffey was talking about like the decrease, so in the beginning of the year, we started out with 1s and 2s, and then what we decided is that halfway through the year, knowing the teachers become stressed and things are more difficult, we are decreasing to 3 times. And so there is a decrease for the rest of this year. But we are hearing from some schools how they really need to have that to continue because of the value and how it helps teachers where they have that collective teacher advocacy in place.
And so, Jen, even though we are saying there could be a structural decrease, it doesn't prohibit a school from saying, well, we're going to continue with our ALP session. So it's providing flexibility to the schools, not a mandate per se. So we are interested to see how many schools that are, if you're scoring a 4.8 from a value perspective as a teacher, and that's helping you get your jobs done, we anticipate that in many places that'll continue at the rate that it is now.
So thank you for explaining that, because my mind was saying, is it because of testing?
That's actually your job is great. Okay.
I figured you may have had a question
Yeah.
about that.
One more point of clarification. I think it's, I just want to highlight that it's not the norm that we have departmentalization that allows for that structure to meet weekly. It's wonderful that the school has done it, and there's some other creative scheduling that's happened in elementary. But I would say we're finding it's more the norm that teachers are having to go 1 week for math, 1 week for ELA, and it is a struggle. We are hearing feedback that it's, the pace of instruction is moving faster than their ALP structure. So getting those in closer alignment would be a goal.
I would say principals are very creative in their scheduling and how they're able to find time for teachers to come together and give them that opportunity. So it's nice to see, and they share with one another. Like, this is what I've been able to do.
And we'll turn it over to Urbana Middle, to Lauren and Emily and Drew.
So I'm the literacy specialist at Urbana Middle School. And as they were speaking, we do meet on a weekly basis. And once HELP started, we really saw the value and we prioritize that. In fact, when we do our master schedule, we make sure that we build that time in. And we make sure that we have time that's both a teaming time where we can meet with grade levels if we need to, but we also have department time built in. So we can decide on each week whether it's more valuable to meet as a department. Sometimes we talk about how standards spiral up, spiral down, talk about here's my expectations at 8th grade, what do they look like here? And we can have those conversations. And then most weeks though, we meet with the individual teams, but we are keeping it a weekly basis. She'll talk in a minute, but Emily's team is one of those teams that's together every day. I know right where I can find them and they're together during that time. Having this built-in teacher collaboration time, one of the biggest things that I've seen the importance of it as we started to build these teams, I know we don't want to say it, but often we used to have, we're like, well, this is going on in this classroom, this is going on in this classroom, I think this student should go here, it's a better experience or whatever. It kind of has removed that. I know if I go into Emily's classroom or Kaylee's classroom with her person partner, they're all getting quality instruction. They're all getting the same material. We have planned purposefully, they know what they're getting. And we know that it's what's best for students, so that should be going on in every classroom. It shouldn't be, depending on who your teacher is that year, your experience could be different. So that's one of the most important things. And with that, I'll hand it to Emily, who's in the trenches.
Which, just a student experience. Recently, I had a student move from my room, from another one of the 7th grade language arts teachers' room, and it was seamless. He did not need me, and he let me know. He said, I know exactly what I'm doing, and jumped right in. And so that seamless process is what we're striving for, and it's something that we work through during ALP. And having that time in our schedule allows us to meet daily. The team was meeting just a couple minutes ago without me. So that we meet every day, and that's sort of to do the rest of the things on our list.
But it also gives us time, especially when we have new assessments like iReady, it gives us time to dig into that. As Jen Bingman mentioned, it's not forced professional learning, but there are times that teachers want a little more and a little more support. So it also gave us that flexibility to do that. We've called some teacher specialists in from central office to kind of dig into that data with us a little bit, talk about which reports would be most beneficial for us. How can we make the most impact in our classroom using that data from iReady? So we're going to have some continued sessions, but again, it's something teachers wanted. We gave a survey most recently too about like for follow-up sessions, what would you like? So even though it's not time that has to be PL, we were able to use it flexibly for that too, to give them what they needed, which if we didn't have that built into our schedules wouldn't have been possible.
So one of the things, when you put your principal's hat on, and what's great about ALP Emily leads a team. There's a team of 4. They are together so much. I nicknamed them Team Amoeba because they are always together. And it doesn't matter whether it's in school, out of school, they are always with each other. And one of the great things as a principal, as we have gone through the last couple of years with staffing shortages or hiring many teachers that are on conditional certificates, they automatically come into a team. So the onboarding process is less invasive when we have a team like this. We have 2 brand new teachers, 1 brand new to the profession, 1 brand new to FCPS. Their transition to UMS and the culture of UMS into our community has been seamless. And that's because of the work that is done together. We have a built-in safety net as a brand new teacher. You have a team to rely on to help you get through those dog days. And we look at it as the school year starts and we're off to a quick pace. And for a new teacher, you kind of start to see it about January. You start to wobble a little bit, start to get a little tired. And then you look at that calendar and you see March. There isn't a day off. Now you're tired, you've been through the winter. How do you make it through with your team? You pull you through. So they are absolutely dynamite. A couple weeks ago, my observation schedule for UMS just so happened to be that last semester I had Emily and one of her teammates on my observation schedule. So I came to them and said, hey, let's do something new. I know you're always together, you're always planning. Let me sit in one of your out sessions. Watch, I'm just gonna sit back and watch. They were doing a unit on Edgar Allan Poe, on Raven. The beauty of out is then watching this plan come together. One of the teachers, and they were working on it, had our honors level students. One of them had on grade, and then another student had code, another teacher had code. And they were developing a lesson with all 3 levels to get something from. And so I used those observation opportunities then to spend like 45 minutes in Emily's classroom, which is on grade level, but then I'm going to go over here and see how the honors kids do. Because of that teamwork, they don't have to take all that responsibility themselves. Because Emily does have on grade level, which does have some of the students throughout the day. So they're able to use those lessons interchangeably. And just one last point. Looking at through the pandemic, we're trying to provide our teachers more time. We relaxed our expectations of them. We have teachers at UMS, especially our math department. We can say, hey, you don't need to do outreach. That's not what they want. It's the reverse. They will seek out the math specialists and tell us, we're meeting anyway. Right. We need to meet them. Yeah. It is vital to the success of our students.
And kind of bouncing off of that, I do not feel that I could be an effective teacher without the out time. The impactful differentiation that is our sort of our next point. There is not enough time in the day, the week, the year for me to effectively by myself differentiate for not only the levels that I have, but the needs within just a single honors classroom. And so having a team that we meet every single day for both planning periods and having that time built into our schedule allows us to not only differentiate effectively, but also to point D. In the morning, our very first period of the day, I teach an honors class and my partner Kaylee teaches an all grade class. Immediately we come together after that and there's always something we can do better. We are constantly fixing and changing and making sure that the rest of the day gets the best instruction that we can possibly give them. And tomorrow we have a small group for period 1 to make sure that they got what the rest of the day gets. And so we can do that by meeting daily and making sure that we have that live, real-time changes to our instruction to make sure that it is the best possible materials and instruction that we can give to these students. So, and that is something that if we did not have the time in our schedule to meet during that time, and if there wasn't that purpose without time, there's no way that we could do that. We just wouldn't have the time to meet. And so it would spin me one direction, it would spin Kaylee another direction, and then that would, talking about equity for students, change the experience that the students would get. So it is vital, and I truly do not believe that I could be an effective teacher without the time. So it's something that I can't imagine a school day without.
I checked in with them the other day. They were so in rhythm. They were using a timer, and they were from one class to the next because their classes were next to each other. They were 12 seconds off within the lesson. The pace.
Which is pretty fun to
And the idea is to really make sure that we're scaffolding it so that all students get that high quality instruction and making sure that we are supporting them appropriately and meeting their individual needs. And so when you come together, you have that ability. You might be wondering, so what were they told to say? We did ask them to share the benefits for staff, the benefits for students, but also the challenges, because we wanted you to kind of see a whole picture of what ALP is, because there are some challenges that they navigate. And so they're sharing both of those, but we appreciate it.
Wow.
It's big challenges reading my mind today. Anyway, continue.
You were wondering that too?
Well, no, I was, we'll get to that.
So next up, we have Tuscarora High School, and so we have Lisa Smith, and then Tiffany Flowers Jackson, algebra teacher.
So, we're not going to be echoing what everyone else has already said, but at Tuscarora High School, our ALP process started really with teacher leadership. And I think that that's really important to emphasize in all of this is that the teacher is really taking the ownership and the leadership of the ALP. Because without them, it just wouldn't be successful. And finding the value in it, as you heard. But a few years ago, I can't remember the year, we did assign Algebra 1 teachers common planning so that they had the time built in during the day to really get out off the ground. And so, again, invested teachers, our math specialists and department chair at the time, really took the time and energy to learn out and to lead the process. And I think at the beginning, I know it was begrudgingly. The teachers didn't really want to participate through Jen's guidance and support. She came out and really worked with them and helped them. And now at that point where it's not just our Algebra 1 teachers, our Algebra 1, our Geometry, our Algebra 2 teachers, they meet weekly and find the value in the time with their colleagues. And so for me, that was key, again, teacher ownership, and it has to be grassroots for them to want to be involved and find that time for it. And then it allows them, I think, to basically speak to that more, time to prioritize students. So we have a foundation of awesome lessons. How can we spend the time, again, knowing our students and diving into what they truly need?
So I'm a math teacher at Tuscarora High School, and I'm also one of the ALP leaders for algebra. I'm also a part of the geometry ALP team as well. And we actually meet on a weekly basis. And it's not just the teachers, we have our co-teachers, we have our special educators. Everyone is there, everyone has skin in the game, everyone's giving their input. And the goal for our ALP meetings is how do we show and how do we get our students to improve? So I'm going to speak for the algebra team because I lead this and I'm going to be a little biased with that. But we take the curriculum standards, we break them down, we see, okay, what do our students know from data, and using our current data, using our past experiences, what are some misconceptions, what are we going to run into? And instead of 8 to 10 different teachers creating their own lessons, we divide and we conquer. So we break up the lessons, we're able to take that time and create thoughtful, data-driven, engaging lessons. And the beauty of it is we have this pool of resources now. And we're able to use our time, and we're building relationships with students. We're getting to learn them. What motivates you? How do you learn? What are your needs? And so when we're building those relationships, then we can differentiate those lessons from that pool. And we can adjust those lessons not only to our own teaching styles, but to the student needs and their learning styles of the students in the class in front of us. So we're gifted that time, because if we're sitting there planning the lessons for every day and for the next lesson and getting ready for MCAT, we wouldn't have that time. So with that time given back to us, we're able to focus on the important things that we need to do outside of teaching the curriculum standards. We're able to communicate with parents. We're able to collaborate with our teachers and our colleagues and say, I'm having a hard time with the cell phones in class. Like, I don't know what to do. And another teacher's like, oh, well, I'm doing this. Let me try that. So we're able to just collaborate and talk about the whole student and not just how do I get the students to learn the standards and get them to pass the test. But with that collaboration, we are seeing those results. We're seeing those results in the testing. So Tuscarora, our math students, we used to be behind the curve when we're compared to the district. But now we're showing that we're ahead of the curve. And our students are showing results not only in their test results, but within themselves. There's so many times in a classroom where students like, wow, I actually get this. I'm actually good at math. I'm not as bad as I thought I was. So because we're building those relationships and we're able to spend time and differentiate the lessons and fill those student needs, we're seeing those results. And the teachers, it used to be out again, but now we're like, hey, we're meeting here. And even though we meet once a week, and it is after school at the high school level, but throughout the day, we eat lunch together. We're all one big happy family. We're talking about things. We're strategizing throughout the day. And then when we come for our weekly meeting, we're really getting down to the nuts and the bolts of everything. But the teachers, because they're gifted that time, they're happy. We didn't have a lot of overturn last year for our math department. I think we lost one teacher, and that was due to he became a PE teacher. So I don't count that. But we're a strong unit, and we're one of the biggest departments at the school. So I do think that is due to the out process because we have that.
And I want to piggyback on that, absolutely, because so I was at Tuscarora for 5 years. I went away 3 and on math. So to see the evolution in the 3 years that I was gone is huge. Math department has made great strides, and I really do think it's because of the collaboration, the cohesiveness, and the working together. And before, in the early stages of ELP, there were parameters on how they were going to design lessons. So what did each lesson need to have? What components did they have? So now they do have a huge repository of resources that they can tap and understand, okay, our students are struggling. Remember when last year they did this, so let's use this. And they're constantly bringing new resources. I went to ELP last week, and they're like, hey, check this out. We can have them use this game to review. So again, tapping their current resources, adding to their pool and what they've used, and it really does buy them more time now because they spent all the time. And I think Drew also said that for our onboarding teachers, it's great because we, again, have a new teacher, no education training. He decided he wanted to be a teacher. Come on in. And so it's a really great group to join. And again, there's the resources and support for our new teachers. That structure is in place to help them.
And actually spoke to him. I asked him, is out helping? And he said, absolutely. He said, I'm able to see the context and the bigger picture. He said, I've never done this before. And obviously I'm teaching these lessons, but now I know the purpose. Why am I teaching these lessons? What should I expect from my students? What are the misconceptions that are going to come up? What might they need more help with? Beginning, he said, if I didn't have this out team, I would have no clue. I would just be coming in blinded and not know what to do, but just teach the lessons. So now he understands the context behind it. And so we do want to expand. So our goal is to take our content areas, because right now that's how we meet, and expand that collaboration so that we're propelling our students to be able to take those higher level math courses. And we're actually already in the process because our year-long students, we handpicked at least 50 students that came up with 2 classes, and now they're in honors math. And they're going to be on the honors level track so that they're not just going to be capped because they didn't start off at honors. So now they understand, hey, we have high expectations for all of our students. But these handpicked students, we're expecting to stay on this honors track and eventually get up to calculus and algebra 3, you never know. So that's our goal, is to expand it across the content areas.
And I will just say, as the slide is up and I look at it, whenever we started with ALP at the high school level, they started with algebra. And so that was the first content area. And then as the years went by, we tried to expand as well to English. And so it's kind of been a slow roll. And so you see for teams that have been together, they've kind of created the synergy to get to where they need to meet the needs of the teams. And it really does take, and I'm going to give all of these folks a shout out because it does take a true instructional coach that's able to make this magic happen and to build that collective teacher efficacy. So really, hats off to everybody who's sitting at the table who was able to create that, because you have to have that person who has the passion for it to be able to see how to build the collective teacher efficacy and to make sure that that time is meaningful time for instructional collaborative planning so that the teacher feels that it's very useful in their next day's lesson. Because that's what it should be. It should be, this is going to help me tomorrow. It's going to make me a better teacher tomorrow. And it should be very impactful that way. And so it takes really the leadership, which we've heard from today, to make it happen. So with that, do you have any questions?
Mr. J, we'll start with you. Any questions?
Thank you. You hear me okay?
No.
You're a little low.
Well, then I'll keep my comments short. I want to thank you for presenting. I had no questions kind of for heavy heard clearly. I just sit right by the table. Thank you so much for your presentation.
Thanks, Mr. Jack.
Ms. Raines is trying to get the volume up. While she's doing that, Ms. Allen, any questions?
Yeah, I do. How do you involve the students in this ALP process?
Sorry. It's louder.
So that's a great question. So I think Ms. Coffey talked about a little bit how she started to utilize it. I would say most teams probably aren't necessarily that far along. She just recently introduced that to part of her ALP teams. I think that's something that we can do more of, quite frankly, is having that student voice and getting the student voice at the table and be creative with ways to do it. I do think within the meetings, though, the building of the student agency engages them in the instructional process. Hence the reason why student agency is specifically one of the components in L, is because the students have to be part of it. And so although they might not be part of the meetings, they're a part of the process, and the fact that we're working to build their student agency, engage them in the learning, and then helping them to even advocate for themselves, to talk to, like, using the metacognition to be able to talk about how I'm learning and what helps me to, like, what I'm thinking, is so that the teacher can really help guide that. So,
Yeah.
The only other thing I was going to add is that we only showed you some of the guiding questions that our ALP coaches use, but some of the more extended questions do ask for teachers to explicitly plan for transparency with students. So how can you do conferencing and goal setting with students? So that is a part of it indirectly.
I think that's where we've heard some successes. When students are engaged with, so for instance, there's a school that in the district where teachers are working with students about their progress in Lexia. Are you committing the time, and what are your levels changing? What are your goals for your levels? Where students set a goal and they have kind of a sense of their own progress monitoring. And that's part of that student agency. Can we get them to buy into and be a part of that? So I think those conversations are occurring as well.
Are all schools in FPS using this? It's all schools. Are they all at the same participation level?
I mean, I think the principals are really working with their teacher leaders to help build the capacity and to kind of work with them where they are. Because one of the things that we want to be careful of is it shouldn't always be exactly this way. Because the teachers are different, they have different needs, they have different students, and so it really does need to be personalized to the teachers. And so, the principals are working with their teacher leaders to help to design and kind of create those instructional coaching situations to really help that team. So there's work to be done, and certainly that's work that's happening across the district.
Yeah, I just made a note here. It seems that administrators are the key to success.
And sometimes
Yeah.
some of the principal's level of knowledge and their conception of what the process looks like, sometimes it's competing structures. So we've noticed with the decrease in availability for professional learning time that's more explicit, there might be the temptation to use the ALP process structure, which is supposed to be more embedded learning, for more explicit learning. And so then the teacher's not going to feel that value, and it kind of interrupts that collective efficacy and the momentum that the team might have. So I think some of that was also perpetuated by the pandemic.
So, I hope this is more, sorry.
That's okay.
Let's see. Is there a way to offer incentives or to incentivize teachers to participate? I mean, I'm just, throwing out there kind of like, if they're not, if it's not a really strong process in the school, it seems to be a great process, a great practice from what I see today.
Well, that speaks to how we started incentivizing. So with our director of subject salaries, we could offer teachers pay at the beginning for staying after school to participate in health. Now that doesn't go across to all teachers, so you really have to focus as a building administrator on what's your priority for this particular school year, right? So we started with algebra and then moving on to English, but then again expanding to other departments. So we don't have enough money to do that for all of our teachers, but again, choosing where our focus is that particular year is a way to.
And previously, we did some for where they could get MSD credit for participation, so we should send that out again. Because we haven't really sent that out lately, so we can send that out again because there are teachers who are really looking for credits. So,
Right.
good reminder, thank you.
I also want to mention that one of the biggest incentives that I have learned through the years is if they have a task that they then can implement in their classroom over the next couple days, that's planning that they're not having to do it. So the fact that they can walk away with stuff that they are doing with their kids is huge, and I think that's where we got our buy-in.
Yeah. Is there any collaboration between schools? Are you doing anything where you're talking to another elementary school?
Well, actually, I don't know necessarily at the elementary level, but in our curriculum department, our specialists have been able to facilitate some conversation. So one area I can point to is in career and technical education. May have one wood design application teacher here and another at another high school. So Mr. McGackey and Corbett Shoemaker have been able to bring them together in some virtual forums. That actually started prior to the pandemic and kind of accelerated. So there's some of that that's occurring, but it is a little more difficult to find those opportunities, especially when there's a singleton in a school. So I know that we've had a number of conversations. Computer science was another area where we were, and part of that essential collaboration because of the speed and the growth of the program and the number of new teachers we were bringing into the computer science instruction, right? So we were really trying to use what was originally a small number of teachers, as you heard from them. Now you're new, and we're going to bring you into that culture and that expectation. So that's occurring in a couple of locations. I can't speak to whether elementary schools have been in touch with one another, but I know, yeah.
Do you mind? Okay, so we as math specialists have monthly meetings, and Debbie Myers, our curriculum specialist, always gives us about an hour to sit together with other schools to preview an upcoming quarter, to discuss the standards coming up, like what has been successful at your school, what are some areas of misconceptions. And it's very interesting to sit with other teams and kind of see how ALP is different everywhere and collaborate. And I have heard, like, our literacy specialists would like that opportunity as well. I think it brings great value. And then I am at a Title I school, and starting next week, I'm going to meet with all the Title I specialists for literacy and math, and we're going to have conversations about ALP, formative assessments, instructional design, all of that. And that was put on by the Title I teacher specialists.
Mr. J, you want to try again now that the volume's up? Not hearing anything. All right. The screen is still up, yeah. Maybe you have to walk away. He's actually teaching. Planning right now. So, lots of thoughts. As I said, you were reading my mind. At the beginning, I told Ms. Allen, this started right as my last year. I retired in 2018. So this had just started and not really. And so mostly what I got was once I was on the board and I was hearing from individual teachers or their collective union representative. And so Ms. Smith, you said, no, you don't think the principal is key. I think the principal is key, whether they run the meetings or open the door for those teacher leaders. I think the principal starts out being key. And it sounds like a lot of things have worked their way through. And one of the things you all were very nice, of course, the board said during the pandemic, stop the meetings. So they said, can we please still do, Alpha 20? All right, fine, but don't make the teachers do more than. So, but we were never, and we would get emails, please don't stop out. And we'd have to say, no, it's what you want. Use your time how you see. You want to have out, you have out. We're not saying you can't. So there are a lot of misconceptions, but please don't take this the wrong way. People come in here, and everybody that comes in here is wonderful, and it's easy to leave with this like glowing kind of, aren't we a wonderful school system? And then you get out and you get an email from somebody. So, it's real easy. Our job is to maybe not be quite so, accepting on the surface. So I thought you asked some great questions, Ms. Allen. And it is good to hear from teachers themselves, because a lot of times, you can think something's working, but it's where the rubber meets the road. So it's great to hear from teachers. And I think the idea of incentive, a lot of times once you get people in the door and they find out the benefits, teachers are a hard audience. I think they say superintendents are the hardest audience as you go up. But adult learners have to see the value, right? Why are you taking my time? I've got 50 things to do. Why are you taking my time? So exactly what you're saying. They see the benefits. And, what do teachers want to do? They want to help their students. My last comment, basically, at this point, although I'd love to hear from some more teachers, anybody watching, I'd love to hear. Or if it's not working well at your school, let's figure out why, because it obviously can work very well. But, I had somebody say to me a few months back, I don't have to like the people I work with and just work people. And I was like, oh my God, that's a novel concept. My teammates were my life. And in 25 years of teaching, I can think of maybe 2 or 3 people that didn't quite get along with and how difficult it made it. And one person who probably was bipolar, and how difficult, I think you know that person. How difficult.
As long as you're not saying it's me.
No. I think you were my AP at the time of that teaching, but anyway, so I'm like, oh, making a connection. No, not Dr. Cutler. I think he had to deal with the person. It was just very difficult. So your teammates are your life, and aside from the principal, who can have a lot of impact on your happiness, it's the teammates that get you through the day. So when people outside of education say this, or they want to impose competition, it's like you just don't understand the system. So when it works well, and obviously it makes for happier teachers. So let's get it working well everywhere.
That's our goal. I would agree with you. That's what we need to get to.
Yeah, and I don't know personally, but I don't know about the other board members, but personally, I really haven't gotten in to see like some out sessions. So invite us.
These are free to definitely visit.
Yes.
Ms. Yo, I just want to reinforce a little bit. Like, there are a lot of things that are ALP that are occurring in buildings. But really what we're looking for is kind of like, what's the recipe that makes it work really well? And so, for instance, you may have strong principal leadership. Teachers may be super excited about it, but if you can't work out a schedule that makes it happen, then people are going to get frustrated, right? Well, the same thing could happen. You could have a principal very vested, creates a schedule, but then maybe teachers aren't yet quite ready to come to the table and kind of have to act their way into a new way of thinking. And so those are all kind of a little bit different problems of practice for a school. The availability and the ease of the use of that data. If it's cumbersome and teachers aren't as familiar with it, then they have to build capacity there. But once they have that, then it translates into that jobs to be done. Like, hey, I'm getting my planning done. I'm being able to work with my colleagues to better scaffold instruction, which can be a challenge, right? Trying to meet. So you're really looking for this kind of recipe to be in place, and different schools have to start at different places with different ingredients, and then build that over time until they can get to the process. And I think that's, and in my experience as a school administrator, there's been times when I've asked teachers to do something. They had a lot of good reasons why it might not be something they'd want to jump into, but after time, they realize and they come back and say, you know what, this was probably a good idea that we're doing this way. And that's what we're hearing from a lot of teachers. Hey, I was kind of skeptical about this because look, let's be fair. Teachers are busy people. They have a limited amount of time. So if they're going to use their time for something, they want it to help them get their jobs done or help them feel better about their role. And so getting folks to that is part of the process of learning together. And remember, we said early on, and this is so important, in the evidence, if you can get to this collective teacher efficacy, you're going to make the kind of growth that we're seeing in students. And so that's the end goal. And it just takes a lot for a school to come to that recipe. So that's I think the support we're trying to provide to our schools, and that's what principals and teachers are striving to get to.
And I would agree. Last thing I was saying this is I was never hearing from teachers the critique or criticism of the overall idea.
Right.
It was the reality. Like, we're meeting, we're getting this far, and then we don't get to do anything with what we learned about the students. So I think some of that was in learning how to make the process work better. And just what you said. So.
Just wanted to point out, I was here the entire time. I just need a second to get to my mute button.
Oh, sorry, Mr. J.
You are much
Yeah,
louder now.
this is totally recorded. Take my meeting seriously. I did not step away. I was here the entire time. Thank you.
I wasn't criticizing you. You are working, and there could be 100 reasons you could have been pulled away. But we can hear you well now. So if you have any questions.
I just didn't wait to get to my call. And I think questions I had were answered in the discussion. We can move forward.
Thank you so much.
Thank you all. Thanks to our school-based friends for coming out. We appreciate it. It's not always easy to do, but we appreciate your time.
Absolutely.
You guys are free to roam the planet.
Or go back to your classroom. Thank you. Thanks, everyone. Okay, gotcha.
You know, yeah. I was confusing.
Okay, gotcha. I'm so sorry. Did I skip right over that? Thank you. I did skip right over that. While they're getting set up, we'll go back to the minutes. Were there any corrections or additions, Mr. James Allen?
I didn't have anything.
We're marked up at 11 now.
All right, thank you. So the minutes will stand. Thank you, Ms. Raines. All right.
Yeah, so our next presentation is from our Organizational Development Department, which is a relatively new team in our district. We thought it would be very important to give you an update on the department, who those folks are, and the bodies of work that they're doing to support our employees and ultimately our students. So I'm going to turn it over to Meg Lee, who is our director, to introduce her team.
Good morning. I'm delighted to be here this morning and very delighted to have our leaders with me today. So, and they will all have a part in today's presentation. Corinne Myers, Dr. Corinne Myers, who is our supervisor of leadership development, and she also supports all of the classifications and adjustments and monitoring of our Title IIA federal funds. Amy Struntz, our supervisor of professional learning and induction. Andrea Morgan, our professional growth manager for support employees. And Joseph Hinson, who is our teacher career advancement coordinator. So as Dr. Puppet mentioned, we are a relatively young department, launched in 2019, and this has been our first normal year of operation. If you think about what the 2019-20 school year looked like, 2020-21, so we are very excited that we have been able to have people in our home at the Learning and Leadership Center in Walkersville, that we have been able to host a community. The building is buzzing with activity. Sometimes from 7 in the morning or earlier until 8:30 or 9 at night. And we are excited that it has been a somewhat normal year for us to help serve our community and our commitment to building learners and leadership in the system. So our focus is really about growth. So as a deliberately developmental school system, we're really looking at how can we really help to provide the best environment for our students? How can we utilize research-informed practices? It was delightful to hear that that's also happening in the ALP process. And how do we foster collaborative relationships so that people can network and grow together? Our leadership development component is a very important piece of our work, and I'm going to hand it over to Dr. Myers to take the lead on that.
Thank you for having us today, and I'm thrilled to have the opportunity to share all that we do in leadership development. And so one of our key programs is the Elite program, and actually has multiple facets to it. The Exceptional Leaders Innovating and Transforming Education really is about a premier leadership development program that focuses in on innovative, equity-focused, and research-informed practice. And so we wanted to build a comprehensive professional development system that allows our leaders to best serve the students that we have here, the staff that we have here, and their communities at large. And so we did that through a 4-part approach. Now, this wasn't all built in 1 year. Certainly, it's built over time. And knowing that leadership development was also born when organizational development was born. So we started with Elite Academy, which was for aspiring principals. Just a couple years ago, we then added Elite Aspire for our aspiring principals. And this year, we added Elite Immersion, and then we have Elite Amplify. I'm going to talk to you a little bit more about all of those things. So Academy is our longest running program in the Elite family. We have just finished our 4th cohort, and we are very proud of that progress we've made with those particular folks. It is a 12-session professional learning program for those that are seeking the role of the assistant principal. You start with book study all about their strengths, and then they jump into these guided sessions that really is a collaborative approach across the system. We bring guest facilitators with our leaders in all departments so they can come in and share their knowledge and expertise with these aspiring leaders. We also have Elite Aspire for the aspiring principal. What I love about Aspire is that we have created a tandem approach. So these Aspire participants actually come to class with our Academy participants, and they serve in the role as mentor. These are folks that have lived the life of an assistant principal, and so who better to mentor our aspiring assistant principals? And so they engage in similar activities that are very scenario-based on what the life of a leader would look like in Frederick County Public Schools, also interfacing with those amazing FCPS leaders, but they also get some focused principal level work that's very much in that wheelhouse to get them ready for their next role. They also do a 360, all about their own leadership, get some feedback from a wide variety of folks, and think about their own professional leadership learning plan that they are able to institute over the course of the year. This is our newest member of the Elite family, and it's a residency program. And so these folks have made it through the application process and made it into the pool, but just were not given the opportunity as of yet to be an assistant principal, but they were given the opportunity to be a resident. They are serving as a resident in our schools, doing almost all of the roles of an assistant principal, getting feedback from their supervising principal, as well as getting feedback from me monthly. And so this is a very unique and new opportunity for us. And we're very excited about what this provides our aspiring assistant principals. We have 2 of them this year, one at a middle and one at an elementary school.
A quick question there.
Sure.
Do they do about observations and evaluations?
They are doing observations, and they're helping out in all of those facets. And they get evaluated themselves as well. And we finally have Amplified for our teacher leaders. What we know is we also need to focus on building our teacher leadership capacity. And as we see is what's coming with the blueprint, this is going to be more and more important. So we're focusing on, right now, the Dare to Lead book by Brené Brown. infusing the teacher leader standards to help us really focus in on the teacher leadership competencies that our leaders need in the classroom, as well as in any leadership role that they may want to have as they go through their careers as teachers. We wanted to provide you some data in terms of our effectiveness in the ELITE program. So what you see is over the course of time, that program has been effective in terms of getting our ELITE participants into the role of assistant principal, and we're starting to get those Aspire folks into the seat of principal as well, many into some acting positions. One of those acting positions in our cohort, our first cohort of Aspire, is now full-time principal. So we are excited to see that. Shifting to our onboarding of new leaders, we are seeing more and more new leaders in FCPS, and so it's very important that we have an onboarding experience, not an onboarding event. And so as we shift to an onboarding experience, we have a multi-faceted system here as well. First being our Leaders Inspire and Facilitate Transformation, which is our leadership coaching program. We do a leadership launch in the summer where we pull everyone together. We have some collaborative sessions with our SAIL team, and we call those our sailing sessions. And ultimately, we provide some focused professional learning on the framework for teaching. We want to ensure that all of our observers and evaluators are calibrated so we can provide high quality. So LIFT, as I said, is our principal coaching program. We have our current sitting principals and assistant principals apply to be coaches for our new assistant principals and principals. They provide support throughout the year. They are paid a stipend to do that. They receive some professional learning in coaching, so they are able to understand that coaching role and how to have good quality conversations with their coachees. We are excited that this year we had 13 coaches and 25 coachees that we supported. We were all sorry. I forgot, we presented at Learning Forward at a national conference about that program this year, and so that was a very proud moment for us. As you can see here, this is how that program has grown over time. So we started out in very few principals and assistant principals, but it really has transitioned, and we serve a lot of folks in that coaching. And what we know about how our leaders are being hired at multiple points throughout the year, having this coaching program has allowed us to support our system leaders as they continue to come on board. Whereas previously when we had our leadership launch over the summer, we didn't have anything in place if they came in later on in the year. We still do have a leadership launch. This year we have 41 participants. We have relevant topics. Of course, we had their direct supervisors apart. It was a collaborative approach with many leaders in our system that were bringing on board their folks and their departments. And so we hit on a topic of building strong teams, as they all needed to work on thinking about how they were going to embark on their new journey as leaders. And then, of course, another ongoing endeavor is our collaborative work with the SAIL directors, and we provide some monthly topics that are directly related to the roles that they are doing with first and second year principals. And so that's something that's new this year, that they really enjoyed connecting with those folks. We know that we don't just serve principals and assistant principals, however. And so it has been incredibly important that we extend opportunities across our school system. And so our Lead and Learns find us really reaching out to all departments, all leaders in FCPS. And so we've been able to offer a couple different book studies over the course of the past couple years, one being Leadership as Language and the other being Impact Players, which is currently running. We also have been able to provide some speakers that have come to Frederick County Public Schools. One being Dr. Joe Sanfilippo, who really ignited some energy in the school system and talked about finding those special moments that we can all take to heart and enjoy as leaders. Another really focused on instruction and targeted research-informed strategies that we could use in the classroom, and he held 4 sessions with different audiences. Finally, We do some things that, again, reach across all of our district. One being our Leadership Sparks newsletters. This creates a newsletter based on a leadership topic. Many actually come from our leaders within FCPS because we ask for topics based on things that they need. And so we provide those every month, give them some research-informed strategies within that leadership newsletter, and we send them out across the board. We have a new ad, professional learning experience for us. One of the things that we've heard is some people don't want to embark on something that's multi-session. They want something that's quick, to the point, and then it's over. And so we've instituted Spark sessions, which are just one and done 90-minute session on a particular leadership topic. So that's something new for us that we are offering for all leaders across FCPS. We also, of course, have our systemic leadership, which gets all of our leaders together in multi-different structures. And so you'll see there on that chart, we have all leaders. Right now, we have 426 leaders that are considered in that particular group. When we focus in a little bit, our instructional leaders, we have 135. And those are really our principals, our supervisors, curriculum specialists that attend that meeting structure. We have multipliers, which are coordinators, and our APs, PPWs, psychologists. And finally, we do meet with our teacher specialists and our business operations and supports. And you can see there the topics that we have addressed throughout this year. And I'm going to turn it over to Amy.
Thank you, Corinne. Good morning. I'm grateful for the opportunity to be here to showcase some of the amazing work that my team engages on a daily basis with induction and professional learning. I'm going to begin by kind of painting a picture of our new hires and the growing need for support with some of our new hires. So I'm going to draw your attention to two particular numbers here. The first one is the number of non-tenured teachers. So if you look at that second row, the third number over, it says 900 plus. This was taken quite a ways back. It's actually well over 1,000. And so that's about 27% of our total teacher workforce. It is a large number. It's more significant than we've seen in years past. And, you know, with the growing number of teachers, also the needs are significant as well because of the makeup of many of our teachers. And that leads me to the second number that I want to pull out, which is that 99, that number of conditionally certified teachers, which again is past 100 at this point in time since we pulled the data. And just to give you a little bit of background about our conditional teachers, mostly these teachers come to us with a bachelor's degree, but that degree may be in biology, it might be in accounting, it might be in mathematics. So it's an area that's content specific, but what they lack is that background in the teaching field, right? They haven't had opportunities in most instances to be with students, to be in the classroom. They don't have the background knowledge on classroom management, lesson planning, instructional pedagogy. And so that creates a significant lift because their needs are different than our traditional new hires that have just left 4 years of education. And so as you can see, the past 3 years, that number has been significant. So I know we talked about that when we did the hiring report last week, that the landscape of our teachers is changing and the hiring and the bench of our teachers is not what it used to be. So that's a significant challenge. I would like to draw attention and showcase a few of the supports that we have in place for our new hires. One of the first things that our teachers get when they come to Frederick County Public Schools is they're invited to a 4-day onboarding experience that allows them to feel welcomed into our system. That's first and foremost. We want them to feel as though they're part of the FCPS family and that they're supported. Because we know that lack of support is one of the #1 reasons that teachers leave the field of education. So we always want to start by building up that support. We also build in opportunities for them to begin to understand our systemic priorities. We provide a forum for them to engage and dig into the curriculum, to dig into curriculum resources, and just to build a collegial support network, because we know it's really important, as the last group talked about, is having that solid team or having those people there that can support you, because those first couple years can be tough. And so we want to start that from the very beginning. This year we had 336 people attend.
But we've also seen in the last couple of years that we've had a lot of new hires hired after the conclusion of our summer symposium. In fact, the last 2 years, it's been over 100 teachers hired after that point. And so that also provides a significant disadvantage for some of our new hires because they don't have the same experiences that the other new hires have had. So this year, we were able to provide a mid-year new hire symposium, and that was grant funded. We also have funds to do that next year as well. And we hope that if the trend in hiring continues, we will be able to have funds in future years to be able to continue funding that, because we find that it's very important that we give everyone a quality onboarding experience. So in addition to New Hire Symposium, we also provide a comprehensive 3-year induction support program. Our RISE induction experience stands for Responsive, Impactful Support for Educators. And there's a lot of information in this chart. I'm just going to showcase a couple things. In all 3 years of our support program, they have an opportunity to engage in credited coursework, and this coursework is free of charge. And they earn credits towards recertification, salary enhancements, and so forth. Also, an important part of all of those courses is that collegiality that I just talked about, that support, those embedded supports that are there for them. And then the other thing I really wanted to highlight are the school-based mentors. So all of our schools have school-based mentors that are there to support our teachers with acclimating themselves to the school community, acclimating themselves into the school itself, learning about the culture. The teachers also, or the mentors also help provide non-evaluative feedback, support, and just help them grow both professionally and instructionally. And so those are some really important supports. The next chart just showcases the participants in each of our courses this particular year. Year 1 is always our biggest. We always have, gosh, over 150. This year it's 213. You'll see the participation changes as they go from year 2 to year 3. The courses are offered all years, but it's typical that we see a decline, one, because some of our teachers come with portable tenure. So after that first year, they no longer have to participate, although they are encouraged to participate. So sometimes they decide to, not partake. Some people are starting their masters earlier than we've ever seen before. Some people just opt out because their family dynamic changes. But again, they are continued to be offered all the way throughout the first 3 years of their tenure. Something that we recently implemented this year is our Rise and Review quarterly debrief. And this is a structure there where quarterly we get together and we have a structured conversation about new hires that may be experiencing greater struggles than others. And so we come together, we work with curriculum people can bring names to the table, and we just talk about how can we collaborate and work together to put the supports into place to help these teachers meet success in our system. And so we're really proud of that. We also offer a program that's relatively new. I think we started this during the pandemic. We really saw that when our teachers were in a fully virtual experience, obviously the challenge became classroom management because they were moving from a virtual world to being face-to-face with students. So we instituted this program. It's between year 1 and year 2, and it's really designed to help them jumpstart their second year of teaching with a concentrated focus on classroom management and instructional engagement strategies. Again, I talked about the importance of our school-based mentors. Right now, we currently have 112 mentors, and we have at least one, if not more, in all of our schools. We really work to showcase these people as these individuals as induction leaders. We have mentor teachers, which support in the school, and our master teachers, which support in our coursework and at New Hire Symposium to support content knowledge and curriculum navigation and understanding the curriculum resources. And so we want to make sure that we're building their leadership and coaching capacity as well. And so we provide opportunities, 2 of which this year we provided for them are Mentoring in the 21st Century and a book study on instructional practices called Power for Teaching.
Systemically, we offer quarterly newsletters that showcase our induction work and the professional learning events that are happening in our system. In addition to all those things I just talked about, my team also supports our professional development school partnerships. Our 4 formal partnership schools are listed there: Frostburg, Hood, Mount St. Mary's, and FCC. We also have many other partnerships with other colleges as well. They're just not as formal as our PDS partnership, which has been in place for over 20-some years. We also work to support all of our teachers in FCPS. Our team likes to say we support you from hire to retire. And some of the ways we do that is through our MSDE course offerings. These are traditional 1 to 3 credit course offerings. And this just shows you the number of courses we offered summer, fall, and spring, and the number of teachers that took advantage of those offerings. And these are offered at a significantly lower charge than college classes. A 3 credit class is only $150, so it's very appealing to our teachers to take advantage of these courses. In addition to those traditional courses that we offer, we support teachers, schools, school groups in running book studies. To date, we've had over 19 book studies run in various schools and departments throughout our county, and we provide training for the facilitators of those book studies as well. We also offer a wide variety of other options for our teachers to earn the credits they need for recertification and to keep the certification valid. And those are just a few of the ways that they can do that as they move through their years. And I would like to thank you for the opportunity to share all the wonderful things. That's just a few of the great things my team does, but I'm going to pass it over to my colleague Joe, and he's going to talk to you about teacher advancement.
Morning, members of the board, CII. Thank you, Amy, for that introduction. My name is Joe Hinson, and I serve and support organizational development as the coordinator for teacher advancement. In the years that I've worked for FCPS, I've served as a middle school math teacher, a math specialist, and then most recently, the last couple of years before stepping into this role, I was an assistant principal in 2 different middle schools. As a building leader, I've supported professional learning and professional development for the growth of school-based staff. I've been an advocate and a voice for students and families in the system, and I've always had a relationship first mindset in working with students, families, and the community. So I'd like to share that when this position, the teacher advancement position, became available, I was really excited because of the experiences and what had transpired over the last 3 years with COVID, and seeing the impact that it had on our students, our families, and the growing staffing shortages that we were experiencing as a system. And I just felt like this position could play a vital role in helping to retain staff for the system. So in the 4.5 months that I've worked and served organizational development, I've spoken with educators to answer questions about the different pathways that might be available for them for advancement. I fielded a lot of questions about national boards and that certification process and what's all required to work through that. And I've also served on 2 different subcommittees. One with the starts in the creation or the design of the career ladder, and also supporting our system with the Maryland Blueprint, specifically Pillar 2, which primarily involves the hiring and the retention of our high quality and diverse teachers and teacher leaders for the system. But I will say, really one of my biggest lifts this year has been working with all of the facets that come into play with the National Board Certification, specifically our state and local incentive program. And so what happens there, it does require a lot of communication with our teachers that are seeking the National Board Certification, and it requires a lot of documentation, collaborating with them, and then communicating with MSDE. So I would like to take a little time with you this morning and just kind of discuss a little bit more about the National Board Certification process. But to do that, I'd like to give a little context and some historical data that comes into play with that. So from 2014 to 2019, we, as a system, we had 25 educators who had worked through that process and achieved their National Board Certification. And then from 2019 until 2022, which was during COVID, we had four 4 educators in our system achieve their certification. So at this time, we do have 56 educators across the system, and out of those 56, 50 of them are working with students on a day-by-day basis. And out of the different certifications that a teacher or educator can earn for national boards, and there are 25 different certification areas. Our greatest certification areas as a system comes down to elementary generalist certification, and then secondary science, secondary math, and secondary language arts. And so in order for an educator to achieve their national board certification, the first thing they have to do, again, is first determine what certification area that they want to achieve in. Again, as I said, there's 25 different areas. And then there's 4 different components that an educator has to work through. And so component 1 is truly like a computer assessment, where the teacher has to show a very thorough and deep understanding of the content that they're getting certified in. And then components 2, 3, and 4 are portfolio submissions. And so what ends up happening there, teachers will work through those components. They'll submit them through the National Board for Professional Teaching Standards organization. And through that process, they're collaboratively scored by educators across the country that are certified. As I said, there are different certification areas. Educators do have 3 years to work through that certification process to complete and submit all 4 components. And then they have 2 additional years if something happens that they don't pass one of those component areas to retake that. Now, I wanted to kind of go through that background because, as you can see, this year alone, we have 90 educators in the system that have either started their national board journey this year or are continuing their journey because they started it last year. And out of those 90 educators across our system, 72 of them are working towards their completion this cycle. And so we get that communication to determine if they've achieved or if there is a component or 2 that they have to work through and resubmit. So with that, it is important to note that as a team, organizational development recognized that there would be an assumption that we would have a spike or an increase in educators that would want to seek their national boards. And part of that came down to, the implications with the Maryland Blueprint and that framework. And then also there's a salary enhancement that is attached to that. And so in order to create a cohort or a support system that would be available for some of those teachers, FCPS Launch was designed. And Launch, just to give you a little background about Launch is a 1-year cohort that's funded through Title II money and was designed to provide coaching, mentoring, and portfolio written support for our teachers that were seeking their national board certification. And you'll notice I did say that 90 teachers in our system are working towards their national board certification. Due to multiple factors with funding and whatnot, we had 50 teachers that had the ability to be a part of cohort, FCPS Launch, and we have 38 teachers that are still participating in that. And the way we have it designed, this year we have collaborative groups that were created based on the level of teaching that the teachers were working in. So we have an elementary group cohort, middle school, high school. We have an others electives category that includes PE teacher, EL teachers, some teachers that are teaching music or art. And then we finally have a cohort group that is teachers that are renewing their certificate. So, or they're working towards their maintenance of certification. And so these teachers meet monthly virtually with facilitators, and the facilitators that work with those teachers also have their national board certification. And so with those monthly sessions, they are getting goal setting, they're working through strategic questions and question starters based on the components that the teachers are working through. And honestly, one of the most important things, it's giving those educators, again, a chance to collaborate, to have conversation and to work through some of those different ideas. Outside of those monthly sessions, the teachers that are part of Launch are also getting one-on-one coaching and mentoring with a facilitator. And we've also built in support through this portfolio submission, where those teachers have an opportunity to submit a portion of what their written submission would be to the National Board for Professional Teaching Standards. And they're getting some feedback and input through that lens, because those teachers that are supporting that part of Launch, again, have worked through and achieved their National Board certification. I think it's also important to note that we are collecting survey data throughout this year, because again, this is the first year for this program. And based on that survey data that we collect, we'll continue to look for ways to reimagine or consider what types of tweaks or updates that we'd like to do for Launch as we transition to year 2 next year. So with that, I would like to pass the torch to Andrea Morgan, and she's going to share with you what she is doing to support or assist our support employees throughout the system.
Thank you, Joe. Good morning. I would like to echo my colleagues and thank you for the opportunity to come and showcase some of the wonderful things that the department is doing. But I'd like to take a few minutes to focus on the things that we are doing for support staff in Frederick County Public Schools. As Joe introduced, my name is Andrea Morgan, and I am the Educational Support Employee Manager. My role was a brand new role that was approved by the Board of Ed, and I transferred and was hired into this role September of 2022. So at that time, I started to take over the onboarding training that had already been established by the department, and with the immediate focus of our secretaries and our substitutes in our system. So I started working with a lot of the department leaders to hear directly from them what their needs were from their support staff, and worked directly with HR to get an understanding of ways we could help support the substitutes as they were coming in. In regards to the secretaries, with that being our immediate focus, we are now in the onboarding of a work group, a stakeholder group that is going to be pulled together from various staff in the system, working together to create an annual secretary in training through the summertime. To date, I've created what I like to call a one-stop shop. It is a support employee website that is pulling together a lot of the wonderful resources that already exist in the system, and then any training that's been offered or additional requests that I've received, I've tried to create tools, videos, resource guides, those kinds of things, and they're all housed on this website. And I've heard from longevity employees, and I've heard from brand new employees that this has become a great resource for them to kind of navigate some of the tools that we have. The system's done a great job of providing these resources, but sometimes it's hard to navigate where they all are. So I'm hopeful that this website continues to be that one-stop shop. I've continued working with our team to provide various learning opportunities and share this information for our support staff in the website, through the quarterly newsletter that is offered to our support staff and sent out, and then also through the website and ongoing conversations with our staff. And then I'm currently working with a lot of the supervisors to help promote leadership training and modules for their staff. Corinne and I are currently working with some of the team at DTI to help provide professional learning for their TS2s. I currently offer monthly open office hours virtually for our support staff, and I also try to make myself readily available via email, phone, Skype, whatever it may be, for any questions that we have. I'm currently working directly with FCC and Frederick County Workforce Solutions. Those are two of our partnerships to offer either free or reduced training for our staff. Currently, Frederick County Workforce Solutions was able to give us grant funds so that we can continue to offer paraprofessional training, which is training for our instructional assistants and our special education instructional assistants that work in grades K through 12.
to get their paraprofessional training. So with the funds from Frederick County Workforce Solution, FCC is able to give us 3 additional sessions for this fiscal year to help train these staff. As previously mentioned with the quarterly newsletter, I use this as a direct link to the support staff, whether it be providing training or tech tools, but I also use it to showcase our support staff because that's what my focus is all about. So there's a day in the life of, there's kudos, and it's to really capitalize the great work that they're doing every day. And then lastly, to make sure that the trainings that's being offered and the resources that are there are relevant to our departments. I do quarterly meetings with our supervisors, our department leaders, to make sure that the information that they need their support staff to have is readily available, and that if there's any fine tuning that can be done, that it's updated immediately. And then to continue our presentation, I'd like to give it back to Corinne Myers so she can talk to you about her Title II Part A funding.
We've heard about a lot of programs, and I'm sure you're getting the overwhelm a little bit right now. But one of the ways that we fund a lot of the program we have is through the Title II grant. And so it was really important for us to showcase a little bit about how we do that. And so the Title II Part A grant really focuses in on the idea of improving the quality and effectiveness of teachers and school-based leaders. And so as we think about our department, that's really our primary focus too. We would love to be able to broaden that to all leaders, but the Title II grant does not allow us to do that. So that hamstrings us just a little bit. And so then we have to really think about what programs can we use Title II to do. So you'll see there both the FY23 and FY22 total grants amounts that we have received. The reason I included both was because they both run simultaneously. So we have to run both grants at the same time. They prefer us to spend the majority of the grant in year 1, but over the past few years, because of some pauses that we've had, we're still a little bit playing catch up with those funds. And so with those funds, there are 22 programs that are supported. So yes, oh, that is a wow. So there's a lot that we support through Title II. Our elite programs that we talked about, Jumpstart that just started, those Lead and Learns, the LIFT Leadership Coaching Program, which is a heavy hitter in terms of our Title II programming. All of our Mind Brain Education programs. We do support Joe and our NBC program there, the RISE program. A big chunk of our Title II funds go to 3 teacher specialist positions right now. It's close to $600,000 of our funding can go to that. When we look at where salaries will go in the upcoming years, that's where if we keep those teacher specialists in Title II, that's where a lot of the money goes.
Another way that we've used this fund is to make sure that we can have a professional learning platform for all employees. And so we invested last year in a program that integrates with other programs in the system called PowerSchool Unified Talent. The transition has not been without bumps and hiccups, but the vision is that all professional learning could be housed in one place. And one of the things that we saw was that across the system, different things were being offered, and each individual department was collecting the data on who attended. So if Dr. Cuppet had a curriculum seminar about language arts, it might just be collected in his department. Same thing with things for special education. And we really felt like we had to streamline that, and whether things were credited or not, we needed a platform where it could capture each employee's completed work. It also can provide ways for us to push things to all employees, make them aware. So every employee, when they log in, they have a dashboard. The idea was to make this more streamlined and accessible. The user experience has not been seamless so far, and that's largely because of problems that we've had with the vendor. And so we're working really closely with them, and certainly Jennifer has been a big piece of helping us with that because PowerSchool is our vendor there, and we feel like things are getting better. But this also allows us to evaluate our programs very robustly. So all of our programming, everything you heard about here today, has an evaluative measure or multiples. Particularly, all those 22 that are funded by Title II have very in-depth evaluative components. Everything that we do with new teachers, so our work is highly bound by evaluation, and that's one of the things we hope Unified Talent can do. Now, I'm tired sitting here listening to the things that our team does. I'm so proud of them and the people who are not even at the table, but who are leaders and teacher leaders and support employee leaders back at our building. But the one other thing that we do is, you heard this morning already several references to the fact that we're a research-informed or evidence-informed public school system. It's important to know that that has a lot to do with the people at this table and the people in our building who have helped to elevate our status as an international leader in this work. And so in addition to an innovative public-private partnership with the Center for Transformative Teaching and Learning that we've had for about 6 years, we recently hosted Research Ed United States and brought people from all over the world here to Frederick to learn about that, but it continues to be a highlight and another piece that is threaded into all of our work. So it's not a separate thing, it's how we do what we do, whether it's how we plan for support employee professional learning, how we onboard new teachers, how we help our leaders. And finally, I am very pleased to tell you that the Learning and Leadership Center turned 100 this school year. And so I love this photo because you can see the building as it originally existed in Walkersville. It was the Walkersville School. And I will be working this spring with the Walkersville Historical Society. And we are planning a celebration of the building on Monday, April 3rd. So we're going to have an open house from 4 to 5:30 so that people in Walkersville can come. We know that many residents had their senior photographs taken on our front steps, or they walk through our building and people say, this was my 4th grade classroom, this was my 2nd grade.
Middle school there.
Well, we're excited to welcome you back, Mrs. Allen. And so we're excited to work with the Walkersville Historical Society and our community because we are very proud to be there and we're very proud of the building. And so we're excited to be able to showcase that.
I will share that with Urbana High 1999
Yes.
first year graduates.
Yes.
My son was there and
Yes.
the cafeteria.
The building has been used for a variety of purposes, from workforce solutions to the success program. It housed central teacher specialists. It housed evening high school. It housed Walkersville Middle during some of those times. It has been a wonderful building for the system. It is our oldest building that's still in operation. So we are right there with Lincoln Elementary, but we are a bit older. But it is a beautiful, beautiful space. So with that, I would love to open to questions, and I know the team is excited to answer as well.
So Mr. Jess, I was texting, make sure he had to stop at 11. And so he has no questions for you at this time. So Ms. Allen?
I do. I have a couple questions. So, going back to the Academy Aspire versus Amplify, Lift, that whole
Yes.
big picture.
Yes.
How are the candidates selected?
Yeah, good question. So we, and you'll see this coming out, we open up an application process.
Okay.
And we ask our aspiring assistant principals and principals to apply. And it's a slightly different application process for both groups. But we do ask that they submit an application. We ask that they submit a recommendation from their supervisor. And then that gets into a pool, and it gets any PII gets redacted. And we have multiple screeners that look at that. And then they go, for the assistant principals, that goes to round 2. And they actually have to do a project. And then they have to complete a project, and that project then gets scored, and then finally those are then selected. Now on the principal side, same process with the application and the recommendation, and I will tell you the first year was a pilot year, and those people got tapped because nobody knew about them. So hard to drum up, some participants if nobody knows about it. This past year, we had exactly 9 people apply. So we had the right number of people, so we didn't have to go any further in terms of screening. We're hoping we'll get a few more that will be able to do the screening process and do something similar. For our Amplify, which is our teacher leadership, we ran it as a book study this past summer. That book study was open to any teacher leader. It filled in 4 minutes.
Any teacher, so
Any
they
teacher,
so
wanting an experience
because-
in leadership.
Right, so we know that there are teachers who want to be a classroom teacher forever, but they are a leader on their team, and so it was opened to all teachers in 4 minutes, filled two sessions,
One
right?
session,
Oh,
because we didn't have enough, we
Right.
didn't have the capacity to fill 2,
right.
but we are committed to running 2 sessions this year, because obviously there is a need, and we
It's
believe
higher.
that we need to fill that need. So we will run 2 sessions this summer, and we're gonna build it out a little bit to be a little bit more in-depth, because we want to make sure that we fulfill that need. As far as immersion, we work with our SAIL team, and they really help, they really give us the people that are a part of that program, because they've gone through their process of application to the AP pool, and they place them, they determine where they should be and how that should run, and then we really are the support and the professional learning side of that.
Also good, because I was wondering whether it was volunteer or
Oh,
whether
it's
you're
volunteer,
getting
yes.
recommendations, like is it, do you have to be working for a certain number of years?
There is that too.
There-
Yeah,
so-
there is
so you have
criteria. Yes, there
within
is
your
criteria.
application that you have to do. Okay.
Absolutely.
And then I'm gonna go to Joe.
Okay.
I have 2 questions for Joe.
Of course.
What would you describe as the top 3 benefits of being National Board certified? So like, if you were gonna sell this to a teacher, okay, not just the fact that it's under the blueprint, whatever, and there's a salary increase, that aside, what are the other like top 3 reasons to become certified?
Well, reason number 1, I come back to students first every day, right? Teachers are always looking for ways to increase their teaching pedagogy, increase their learning capacity, and meeting the needs of kids. And so part of working through that process in achieving their National Board certification, they develop a deeper understanding of the content that they're teaching. They look for ways to make the learning environment more conducive for students to be successful. Component 4 comes back to being an effective and reflective practitioner. And so our teachers in our system, they're so tactful in how they go about that. They're reflective. They look at data. We heard that conversation earlier today about the out process, right? Teachers are looking for ways to meet the needs of their kids. So students first every day. Again, I think it comes back to the ever growing or evolving learning in meeting the needs of kids. And then, finally, what we found out of the 50, at least you can glean from this, out of the 56 educators in our system that have their National Board certification, 50 of them are still working in the classroom, working with kids every day. And so we want to make sure that we provide those options, those pathways for teachers. They can lead from wherever they are. And so for someone that has aspirations to work with kids throughout their career, to be in the classroom, to make a difference in a school building and school community, National Boards gives them that opportunity to learn a lot more about the process and making a difference for kids. And like I said, they can lead from where they are in the building, working with kids and working with members of the department.
So I would see one benefit maybe to the system is that it's a retention strategy.
Obviously, yeah, it can definitely do that.
Yeah. So one last question. Is there any evidence that shows that this level of certification translates to student achievement?
So, I'm sorry.
I mean, I want to go ahead.
So, there's a lot of layers to that question.
I know there is. So if you want to address it in an email, I'm happy to do that if you feel that it's easier.
Well, the only thing that I was going to say is, teachers, the way I view it is there's lots of different ways for educators in our system to grow in their understanding in what they're doing for kids every day. And so I think the National Board Certification can be one piece of that puzzle, right? But I think it also comes down to our educators that are seeking to take continuing ed credits, working towards a master's in a specific content area or ed leadership and administration, right? So for me, I view that as one piece of the puzzle, but I don't know that I would necessarily say that I would quantify and lift national boards above a lot of those other systemic approaches and options available for our teachers in the system.
I believe, Dr. Alavito was doing this. Meg, go ahead, and then Dr. Alavito, I think.
No, I was going to speak to the research actually about it, Jamie.
Go forward, and I did report on the research last February, so
Yeah.
I want to be clear with what the board has already heard, but
Go ahead, Jamie, if you want to share that.
Basically, there is research to show that nationally board certified teachers are highly effective. That doesn't mean that people who are not nationally board certified are not equally effective. A lot of the research is very focused, but one of the things to remember is there are 25 different certifications. So when you start to break down the effectiveness of each individual one, it's very hard to know. Jamie, is there anything you?
Yeah, the state board actually presented on the research, and basically it is some research says that there's a positive outcome, and some research actually suggests there's not.
Right.
And so it's inconclusive, and that typically begs for the need for more research. And no one has really answered the question of, are there other certifications that would also benefit?
Exactly, and what else exists, right, on the educational landscape now? The other thing that I would say is in Maryland in particular, if you look at teachers who have sought national board certification over the last 10 years, it's very different in some cases to look at the person who sought the national board certification when there were not some incentives attached to it, and they did it because they're a reflective practitioner and they wanted, to be very deep in their content, maybe a collegial relationship. And I'm not saying people who are seeking now don't seek the same thing, but I think across the state, you're going to see some differences in terms of efficacy, because now with an incentive, a big incentive attached to it, more people are saying, I think I'll do that. Whereas we had a lot of people who did it because they were just a reflective teacher and practitioner. And I think that will be an interesting way that we'll have to watch the data as well. I think it will also impact how many people achieve national board certification. So certainly programs like Launch are designed to help guide people through that process. But I think there's a difference between somebody who sought it 10 years ago and someone who might seek it in the next 3 years in terms of what level of achievement we may see in who finishes in 1 year versus who may take 2 years, may take 3 years.
It's a really rich research territory for the years.
Yes.
For any future students or,
Yes.
research department.
Absolutely.
Let's take a look at that, and we will take a look at that.
Yes, that's what I was gonna say. I think that's something that we could certainly have in the future to look at, our teachers who are national board certification and looking at their student achievement.
Yes.
I mean, there are other factors like they talked about that we want to consider. Looking at where the students started and then their growth would be important. So those are future studies that are.
And I tie it to the students first, but I also, wouldn't want to diminish the benefit to the actual teacher either.
Absolutely,
I mean, I
absolutely.
understand the
Yes.
expanding any learning opportunity that helps them do their job better is awesome. Just that, under the blueprint, and I could be wrong about this, but I believe it's an unfunded,
Funded for a little bit.
Yeah,
Kind of.
so, yeah.
We would need Leslie and Heather here to explain the exact breakdown.
Yeah.
So,
But it isn't something that, right, it's gonna fall back on the school system.
yeah, Yes, so thank you, because that was one of my things, because Mr. Bass constantly asks that. And, just to go back with the blueprint, the National Center on Education through the Economy were very instrumental in how parts of it were done. And so, that's where they came on some of the decisions they did that others might not have. And then, on the Special Standards and Teacher Education Board, but Mr. Hornbeck from Frederick County has pointed out that parts of it are all about, well, it's not, but because of Blueprint, the NBC, but yet what's currently in regulation, especially with mentoring, still focuses on master's degrees. So there's some working out there to do. It's kind of interesting, but and when every time I go to Peace Deb and I walk into the State Board of Education's room, we sit on their dais, there's a sign out in the lobby, and it says, earn $17,000 extra, and I really hate that sign. Just because I don't think it's honest. I think it should say, earn $10,000 extra, asterisk, 7,000 if you're, it's like, I just don't think it's honest, because am I right that we currently have no schools where anybody's going to earn $17,000 extra dollars? So anyway, that's sort of on a personal county level there, but bugs me every time. So thank you for asking that, because that was one of my questions. Overall, I just want to, I don't have so many questions, I just want to commend you. And I know Ms. Lee was modest, and I think, and you're all wonderful, but I think you would all say this was kind of a lot of things coming down to her brainchild, and that, so I apologize if that's not true, but that's my perception, and then everybody jumped in and made it better and built on ideas and all. So I am glad to see, if there is going to be this part of Blueprint with the NBC. One of the things I've heard, I never did it, but I have friends that did. The reflection piece was a big part of it for them, and that was before. But my understanding is solo people don't have as high a ability to make it through. That it's very much having that group to bounce things off and just kind of push you, come on, you can do it. So I think that's great that we're offering that support. And the ed support, not that, well, I'll get back to you in a minute because that is important. But the support staff support, I think, is just novel and wonderful, because what do they have? 150 or 80 some different job categories. And one of my favorite secretaries in the system was Barbara Thompson, who you both know, and Dr. Cuppett, well, because she stole him and took him to Lincoln with him, which that's a whole other story. But Dr. Harris was already gone. So. But I used to talk to her because she was head of FACE at one point, and I'd say, and she was so wonderful. But I would go to another school for other things back before you had to sign in and everything, and you'd stand at the front office, you could just walk in the school and you'd stand there. Nobody would help you, and then be like, I know where I'm going, and would just leave. I talked to Barb Thompson about what training is there. Secretaries are our first people that the public comes into contact with. My sister-in-law was a 12-month secretary in Montgomery County in Potomac. She had she could have written a book, but they're the ones that come in contact with the public, either on the phone or in person. What training? And Barb's like, there really isn't. It kind of counts on you to just be that person. So I love hearing that, you're starting with them, and the SEIA is so important, because we hear that from our CPAD all the time, every year. Get the SEIAs trained. So great stuff, and I know you'll transcend through the ranks there as time goes on. And then just for the other parts that you do, it used to be people would get to be principals, and then, you've achieved the ultimate thing you were after. Okay, go do it. And what's to say that they were going to do a good job? We've seen, of course, obviously mixed results in the past. But and I had a friend from high school, very involved with the school, but not as a teacher, say finally at one point, wow, I never realized how much the principal affected just sort of the happiness of the staff. And we all know, principal is key. And so, good that they're getting the support that they need, and we're thinking, so thank you so much for everything you do.
Sure. Thank you very much for the time.
Thank you all, appreciate it. So for agenda items for next meeting, it's the big curriculum revisions, pilot courses, or new courses, which should take all of the time.
Yeah, we've forewarned the rest of the board to please, please, please look through those notes ahead of time.
And then we go to the following meeting for.
But I know, but they can look,
They
I
sure
look
can,
at what
yes.
policy's doing, because I want to have a say early on, and that comes to the board. They can look at what our agenda is and our PowerPoint presentations
Yeah,
and anything
great.
on. So I want them to take the time so that they're not rushed or scrambling. So. We have about 5 minutes. I see we have a member of the public. You missed public comment time. If you have anything you want to say to us at this point, please feel free.
No, thank you.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you. All right, and with that, we are adjourned.
All right, thank you.